Okay, it's 6:30, so we will call the meeting to order. Rebecca, do you want to do roll call?
Yes. Vice Chair Janowski.
Here.
Commissioner Blomgren.
Yes, here.
Commissioner Elson.
Here.
Commissioner Miles.
Here.
Commissioner Phipps. I am expecting her shortly. Commissioner Ravazio.
Here.
And Youth Commissioner Weingart is absent. And we have newly appointed Commissioner Louise Brown.
Here.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, next on our agenda would be a salute to the flag. I don't know if people have a flag in their home office or how we should handle this. Do we just go ahead and...
Our commissions have still been doing the pledge, but just not standing.
Okay, why don't we do that? All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the
Republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and Commissioner Phipps was in the attendee column, and I just moved her to panelist.
Thank you.
All right, item number 2 is swearing in of the new commissioner. That will be Louise Brown. Welcome, Louise.
Thank you.
You want to read that section?
Yes, I did send Louise the oath of office earlier in the day so that she can follow along and repeat after me. And then after we complete the oath, you will sign the oath, and then we'll ask you to say words about yourself and your interest in the commission. Okay, I state your name.
I, Louise Brown,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
Would you like to introduce yourself to the commission?
Sure. Thank you. I'm really excited to be joining the commission. My husband, Brian, and I moved to Corte Madera in 2003, and we've raised our 2 boys here. But I was born and raised in Marin, so it was a long-held dream to get back here, and we're really excited to be a part of this community. We live up on Christmas Tree Hill in the same house that we moved into when we first moved here. And I'm interested in this commission because my sons have both freely and extensively used the benefits of all the programs that Parks and Rec oversees. And I think it's a good opportunity for me to step in with something that I'm familiar with to try to make a positive impact on the community.
Thanks, Louise. We're really excited to have you on the commission.
Thank you.
All right, item number 3, reorganization of the commission. We were really lucky to have Fred at the helm for at least it's been 4 years and possibly longer. But since he is now on town council, we are going to select a new chair. Item 3A, selecting the chair, and I would like to nominate Nate Blumgren. Do we need to have public comment, Rebecca, or can I just ask for a second?
You can ask for a second first.
I'll second.
Thank you, Pat.
And then if you would like to ask for public comment, I can check and see if there are any hands raised.
Do we have any public comment on item 3A, selecting our chair?
I am seeing no raised hands.
Okay, can we call for the vote?
Vice Chair Janowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Blomgren, can vote. Commissioner Elson,
Yes.
Commissioner Miles,
Yes.
I think that's a yes. Commissioner Ravazio,
Yes.
oh, and Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
And Commissioner Weingart is absent. Congratulations.
I say yes too.
Oh, who did I forget?
Phipps.
Oh, thank you. Commissioner Phipps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and so thank you, Nate, for stepping up. I think you're going to do great. We're really lucky to have you at the helm. 3B, selection of vice chair. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
And rumor has it that Emily is willing to continue as vice chair, so I would like to nominate Emily if she's interested.
I second Emily as vice chair.
Okay.
Is there any public comment on vice chair? I am seeing no raised hands. So I will continue with the vote. Vice Chair Janowski.
Yes.
Oh, Chair Blomgren.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Elson.
Yes.
Commissioner Miles.
Yes.
Commissioner Phipps.
Yes.
Commissioner Ravazio.
Yes.
And Commissioner Weingart is absent. Thank you. And congratulations.
Okay, so now does Nate take over? I'm happy to do it, or he does.
He gets to take over, and he can rename himself chair on his name tag if you would like.
Okay, I can do that. Thank you, Emily and Rebecca. And as Emily said, I just want to have in the record a big thanks to Fred Casisa for his many years of service. He was great, and I hope to be able to keep everything organized and keep everything moving the way he did. That being said, I welcome any prodding from Rebecca or from Vice Chair Janowski on matters of procedure as I get used to this role.
We're all getting used to this new role. I think the one thing I remember during these online meetings is just you can keep prompting me to check for raised hands or public comment, and we're just erring on the side of frequently asking for public comment or raised hands. We do have, it looks like 4 people at the moment, 4 attendees watching the meeting remotely, so there may be public comment received.
Okay, thank you. So moving on in the agenda, we're at number 4, open time for public comment. So is there any comment from the public who is on the call on any matters that are not part of the agenda?
I did receive 2 emails that I will read into the record momentarily, but I see that Fred Casisa has his hand raised. So we will unmute. Okay, Fred.
Okay, this is Fred Casisa, 18 Granada Drive, Corte Madera. I'm speaking on my own behalf, so comments are of a personal nature. I think Emily alluded to it, but I think I've spent the last 7 years on the Park and Rec Commission. I think the last 3 or 4 plus and minus as chair. And I know this is the first opportunity to speak because this is the first meeting since shelter in place took effect. But I just wanted to thank the commission and all the commissioners for all the hard work and all the efforts during my time on the commission. It was definitely noticed and it was really appreciated, really appreciated. I know there was a lot of ups and downs, but to me, the ups far outweighed the downs, especially stuff like the skateboard park and the shade structure. And I just really enjoyed working with everybody on an individual level and the commission as a whole. And this may sound kind of funny, but I actually thought it was kind of fun, believe it or not. Some people would think I'm crazy, but again, I thought it was kind of fun. The other thing I want to do also is acknowledge and thank Ashley, even though she's only been here, I think, since March 17th, which was the first day shelter in place took effect. So essentially she got started, but never showed up technically because she worked at home. I give her a lot of credit and a lot of kudos because she immediately shifted from the physical part into the virtual world. And all of a sudden I start seeing a lot of stuff on the website, Park and Rec virtual classes. She's doing virtual trivia, there's all kinds of good stuff there. So I want to give kudos to you for all your hard work. And just lastly, I think between the commission, Ashley, and I'll throw in a little bit of Todd, I just think Corte Madera Park and Rec is in a really good place. I think there's going to be a lot of great things coming up in the future. So again, thank you for everybody for all the support during the years. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank
Fred.
you. Don't forget about us.
Never.
Do you have any other comments, Rebecca?
Okay, I will wait and see if anyone else raises hands, and I will read the 2 emails that we received to publiccomment@tcmmail.org. And just a reminder that public comments received via email are treated like live public comments and subject to the 3-minute time limit, which I am starting now. This message is from Joel DeVilbus, who says, during the COVID-19 crisis, the community has afforded dog owners some leeway with the leash laws. It is now time to start enforcing the leash laws again in Corte Madera Town Park. I live on Mohawk and back up to the park, and the number of dogs being allowed to run off leash throughout the day is absurd. The barking, calling of dogs' names, and whistling for dogs begins at 6:30 a.m., not very considerate of the community members that live around the park. Dog owners are throwing balls into the low canal for their dogs to swim and retrieve. I have reported this to both the town of Corte Madera and to the police, but there has been no response. Apparently, the town of Corte Madera feels that dogs playing is more important than ducks, egrets, herons, and other otters that live in these waters and shores. Perhaps the town should adopt a golden retriever for its town seal in place of the egret. I have also witnessed several instances of dogs running up to children playing in the park and up to joggers. I have also seen large dogs chase small dogs who are on leash, forcing responsible dog owners to have to carry their small dogs away. It is a matter of time before an off-leash dog hurts a kid or another dog. My neighbor's 10-year-old son, in fact, does not want to go play in the park because he is afraid of the dogs that run up to him. I am asking that the town of Corte Madera work with the Central Marin Police to figure out an enforcement plan. Please give the park back to all members of the community who want to enjoy the park for playing, picnics, and relaxing without fear or annoyance of dogs off leash. Thank you, Joel DeVilbus. Okay, and the second comment is about basketball courts and comes from Harry Schmidt, who asks, when will the basketball courts be reopened and what reasons are there for not allowing people to use the basketball courts? Thank you, Harry Schmidt. And that is the end of the comments received to publiccomment@tcmmail.org. They will also be available on the town's website tomorrow. And if anyone else in the audience wants to make a public comment at this time, they're welcome to raise their hands. Okay, not seeing any additional raised hands.
Okay, thanks. And as a matter of procedure, we can't discuss the issues just raised because they're not on the agenda. But I might suggest that, Ashley, you could put something on the website about the plans for basketball court if you have plans for it. Okay, item 5 is presentations, and we have Shanat Rodriguez, who's going to give us a summer day camp and modified summer playground presentation. So Shanat, take it away.
Shanat, I just made you a co-host. Do you have a screen to share? You should be able to share now.
Yes, I do have the screen to share, and I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that everything is ready to go. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to figure out where the presentation button is on here. Great. It is. Awesome. Can everyone see the
Yeah.
presentation? Awesome. So my name is Shanat Rodriguez, and I am the director for Summer Playground. This is my second year. A little bit about myself is that I have grown up in Corte Madera. I attended this camp when I was younger. I've been with the camp for about 7 years now. So I worked my way through the program as a camper. I did counseling for a while. I took on the role as a leader. I ran the counselor and training program for about a year, and then I was promoted to site coordinator, and now I am here. So without further ado, I'm gonna present to you what I have planned and what I am proposing for this summer, given the new circumstances. Here we go. So a little bit of background. Our program has been part of the community for, I'm sure, more than a decade. I think maybe even a little bit more than a decade. And our original program runs from 7:30 in the morning until 6:30 in the afternoon. And it is widely used from people all over Marin County, and even sometimes from Sonoma County as well. A lot of the parents benefit from our really flexible hours, our prices, our daily, weekly, and full summer options. So it's been a staple in our community for a very long time. Due to the COVID-19 circumstances, we have taken our program and we have modified it so that we can provide childcare and still meet the needs of the community while following the county health guidelines and protocols. And we did this by creating two programs, a virtual and a traditional in-person camp, which are two programs that are going to look completely different than what the community is used to seeing. Again, we did this so that we could still offer childcare, because we know that our community still needs that. Our children still need some sort of relief from everything, the stress of everything that's going on. One of the biggest things that we've done is we've updated the dates. So we moved camp. Originally was scheduled to start on June 22nd, and we actually pushed the start date to July 6th. And it will run until August 14th, which was the original end date. Our thought process behind pushing back until July is because we know that there are a couple other camps in the area that are starting. I believe some have already started. And what we wanted to do was allow ourselves to have a window of time where we could kind of see how other camps are doing, learn from their mistakes, make rearrangements if needed. We really want to take this window of time to look, analyze, and be very prepared for our program, offer the best that we possibly can. Additionally, by granting ourselves a little bit more of a window to breathe, it allows for better development of the program, of the training, of the protocols, because everything is changing all the time. I think that by waiting a little bit longer, perhaps the quarantine procedures in place will be a little bit more clear. So that was the thought process behind that. So our staff, we have 19 returning staff members, which is a lot more than we had last year. We have 3 new staff members. We actually have 1 staff member that came over from the Larkspur staff. This particular staff member has been a part of Super Cool Summer School, which unfortunately won't be offering their program this year. And the people at Larkspur were kind enough to kind of send some of their great employees our way. One of them is a first-year counselor. So he has been a camper, he has been a CIT, and this is his first year as a counselor. And so we're very excited, and we're always happy to see when people move through our program, because that is what we aim to have. Campers motivated to become CITs, motivated to become counselors, motivated to be the future director, the future site coordinator. We have plenty of our staff that have ran through the program and are still here all these years later. So a little bit about virtual camp. What we decided to do is provide a program that will allow campers to participate in a camp-like experience from home, and that will also enable parents to focus on other responsibilities. We know that having our kids, siblings at home can you know, cause a little bit of a distraction from other responsibilities, whether that be work responsibilities or any personal responsibilities. So we really wanted to create a program that parents could sign up and, you know, feel at ease with having their children interacting with our staff and doing cool projects even from the comfort of their home. So what we did was create a way so that families ideally will be able to pre-select activities based on their interest. I think in the next slide, you'll see how I break down the day, but ultimately we didn't want to take away the choice for the kids, the campers, and the parents. So we decided to offer 2 choices within every activity block, and the parents and our family will be able to select those before the program starts. And we will be creating supply boxes or supply bags. We have still to decide if we're using bags, if we're using boxes, but essentially we want to provide the supplies. We want to reduce the amount of stress from the parents. We want to, you know, take off a little bit of weight and off their shoulders, and really provide everything that they'll possibly need for the activities that they have selected. And these activity boxes will be prepared by staff, and families will have the option to either come pick them up directly from a designated spot, or will have the option to get it delivered if they live within Corte Madera or Larkspur. So what I did here is I showed, it looks a little bit complicated, but I assure you that it's not as complicated. What I decided to do was create the program to run from 10 o'clock in the morning until about 3. I know that this is a big change in our time that we usually offer. We usually offer, you know, the full day, but just realistically, virtual can't offer the same amount of time. So what I did in order to maintain the possibility of keeping the kids' attention and interaction with us, I made each activity slot be only 30 minutes increments. So every 30 minutes, they're changing their activity. These are examples of activities. Nothing is set in stone, of course, but we really wanted to come up with activities that still provide that camp feeling. Some of our campers love doing cooking during regular camp. I mean, it's the most popular one. So we decided to still be able to incorporate it. Additionally, what we're doing is moving away from games and sports just because it's not as doable, and moving more towards arts and crafts, cooking. If we can develop a little bit of engineering, we would like to incorporate that as well. But of course, all of these things are still work in progress. Basically, what we would have is 2 teams of staff, and they would be posted. So, you know, their camp names, and they would alternate to teach the lesson or guide the activity. And what that does is that offers the kids to interact with different staff members so that they're not stuck, but that they're not just doing it with one staff member. Maybe they have a staff member from last year that they really like, that they like to hang out with, even if it's from Zoom. So that's what we did for that. Right here in our staff schedule, that's just the breakdown of the 2 different shifts that would be available for the staff that work the virtual camp. And then I just kind of did some simple math and on staff costs for this program. Additionally, what we really wanted to keep in mind was the camp environment. We understand that for some campers, it can be sad that they're not going to be able to have the traditional camp experience. So what we've done is we created ideas, or we've thought of some ways to still have this in-person connection with not only the staff, but the campers. So we're thinking about doing parade where we will parade to all the families that live within the Corte Madera Larkspur area. So we've been seeing this a lot with preschools, and grade schools have been doing this a lot. There are plenty of videos out online. I'm sure you've seen them. The kids love it. And it's another way of maintaining that real life connection. We've thought about doing virtual dance parties. You know, it's always good to have them you know, shake off the stress. You know, right now could be a really stressful time for the kids. So we're really trying to keep them motivated, moved, and interacting with our staff. Theme days and event days, it sounds impossible, but nothing is impossible. So I am trying to figure out how to incorporate one of our most, our camp favorite one would be Harry Potter, which was a big event that we did last year, and it was super, super fun. Incorporate Decades Day, Tie-Dye Day. We really want to keep the vibe silly and lighthearted for the campers, as well as for the staff. Moving on into our traditional in-person camp, this is the one that we will see the most dramatic changes. Our goal is still to provide a safe and fun alternative to the traditional summer playground camp that we all love. The new location of this in-person camp will be Neil Cummins and the town park. We have partnered with Neil Cummins and we are currently working on securing classrooms. We have asked for 5 to 10 classrooms depending on the demand that we see, how much the community needs this and how much we can offer based on staff. The ratio would be 2 counselors to 10 kids. These kids would be the same kids with the same counselors through the whole session. There would be no mingling. We really want to create a very controlled and safe environment with as low risk possible of any kind of thing to go awry. And we're doing this by maintaining the ratios very low. So we have decided to offer 2 different hour options, a morning hour program and an afternoon program. The morning one running from 9:30 to 1:30, and the afternoon running from 12:30 to 4:30. Ultimately, I think what we have decided is that families can only choose one, either the morning option or the afternoon option. Again, we know that parents work, you know, longer than those hours, but we are trying to maintain the problem with running a program the same amount of time that we usually do is that we run into lunch breaks for staff. We don't want to have to bring in different staff to break the original staff. That would just bring up a lot of mingling. So we want to keep it controlled, same staff, same kids ratio, and that's why we broke it up. Each group, as mentioned before, will stay within the designated classroom and will not mingle with any of the other groups. It'll be their classroom for the whole session. All of their bags, everything will be found there. All of the supplies will be there. So there will be no need for them to mingle into any other room. Here's the schedule for this program. Again, over here is what the activity would look like, and this is the staff schedule. What we've decided to do is have free play be the first 30 minutes of our both programs. So whether it's morning or afternoon, you're getting free play for about 30 minutes upon arrival. And then we continue with 2 hours of low to no touch activities. So we are brainstorming different activities that would require as little interaction between the campers and between the staff to once again keep any kind of risk low. Lunchtime, snack time for 15 to 30 minutes, depending. Morning shift would have 30-minute lunchtime, and afternoon shift would have about 15-minute snack time. And then back to another round of low to no touch activity, wrap up, clean up, and pick up. So it's a short, kind of condensed day, but it's still going to be filled with different activities, arts, crafts. If we can do cooking as well, that's something that we'd also like to do. And then just the 2 shifts right here that the staff would potentially be running. Ultimately, staff will be working the same amount of hours, whether they be in virtual or traditional in-person camp. Our registration, our goal is to open registration June 1st. We'd like to consider priority period for families of essential workers. We want to give them priority because we know that other camps are already sold out, so we want to give them a fair shot. We are trying to set prices that are both sensitive to the community limitations, but also generate revenue for the town. We're aware that some people don't have the same income as they have had in the past. So my goal has really been to try to pinpoint the correct price that is breathable for the community, but also bring in some money. So right now, these aren't set, but this is basically what I think would do both of those, is have $340 per session. I believe I might have forgotten to mention earlier that we are breaking up our program into 3 2-week sessions. So it'll be 3 different sessions of 2 weeks. So you're only paying $340 for 2 weeks, which comes down to $34 per day, which isn't too bad. And the virtual is still to be determined. We're trying to make sure that we're covering supplies, we're covering staff time, prep time. So that one's a little bit to be determined, but we're definitely working to have prices that are doable. Marketing, so because these are 2 completely different programs than what our camp is used to, we're doing really big marketing on this by updating our website, creating commercials. The staff have done that in the past. The campers love it. We used to showcase them at the beginning of the camp and they love it. So right now we're in the process of coming up with fun and interactive, silly commercials to promote our camp. Also direct marketing to past participants via email, what have you, social media, Facebook, Instagram, Nextdoor, weekly Towns newsletter. All of these are avenues that we're going to explore to market and really sell this program, these 2 programs. And I believe that's it. So thank you very much. And I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you, Shanat. Yeah, I think a lot of us met you last year in May when you gave your first presentation, and we were all so happy you're working for us, and I think we still are. That's very creative considering what we're going through. Why don't we see if there's any comments from the public first, and then we'll go through any questions that the commissioners have.
Sorry, I was muted. I'll check the email first, but I'll invite any members of the public who wish to make a comment to raise their hand at this time. And I have received no emails, and I see no raised hands.
Okay, thank you. So if there's any comments or questions from the commissioners, please go ahead and jump in.
This is Aline. I do have some questions. Well, first of all, this is really thought out, and I'm really impressed with the plan that you have. It sounds like it's going to be really a fun summer session for the kids, and thank you so much for doing so much planning. I'm wondering what you're going to be doing for preventative measures for staff and students. Are you going to be doing any masks or taking temperatures, washing hands? What kind of measures are you taking in that area?
Yeah, so I think I might have accidentally deleted the site, but we have done a lot of research and protocol. So the staff members will be wearing gloves. Washing hands will be part of every break in between our activities in person. We're looking to get the thermometers to be able to check temperatures at the beginning when they check in. We're really working to do everything that we can, have all of the classrooms sanitized both at the beginning of the day and at the end, every single day. All of the supplies will be for that designated classroom, so that again limits the exposure to anything else. But we are working, that is part of our work in progress. We're trying to see what the CDC is also information that they're releasing, new protocols, but it is something that we are exploring a lot, and it will be announced via our website under our FAQs, everything that we're doing to help prevent and limit the exposure.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Pat.
Just a couple questions. Following up on Eileen's, the sanitizing, will that happen between the shifts as well? So after the morning and before the afternoon? You mentioned at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, but will there also be a between the morning and afternoon in a classroom?
It kind of depends on the amount of classrooms that we have. Ideally, I wouldn't even want to have crossover between morning shift or morning program and afternoon program. But again, it depends on what the school is, willing to give us. But if we do have a very limited amount of classrooms, then yes, there would be desanitizing in between shifts for sure.
Okay. And then the free play early on in the day, is that outdoors?
No, that would be within the classroom, but it would just be kind of whatever if they want to do coloring pages, low touch, but it would just be not structured or not leaded.
So will these kids get a chance to get outside at all during the day?
Ideally, yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that would be within the limits of social distancing. So, our park is huge. It has plenty of room. So yeah, yes, absolutely.
I agree. And I think getting outside and finding it workable is really an important thing for us to try to do for them. So you said something about needing to generate revenue, and maybe we can get clarification from Todd on this, but in the 35 years
I think
that
you're
the
cutting
parks,
off. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So the parks, the camp, the summer program's actually been around, I think, for like 35 or 40 years, not just 10. And all that time, it's been important for the camp to try to break even. It's never been an aim to generate revenue. And I just want to make sure that that policy hasn't changed.
I think that the goal is to break even, but if we can generate revenue, then that's also a positive outcome from the program.
Okay, and then the only other thing is when you open up for priority signups for the essential workers children, which I think is a great idea, I do think you should start with essential workers children from Corte Madera and Larkspur, and then all essential children. Oh, I'm actually making a comment. I'm supposed to wait on this. But my question is, can there also be a early on priority for Corte Madera and Larkspur residents? I know traditionally we've served the whole county, but because our numbers are we're not going to be able to serve as many. I'm wondering if we can put Corte Madera and Larkspur residents first.
That is definitely something that we can explore, and it hadn't been something that I had considered, but it's a great thing to point out. And
okay,
yeah,
thank you. That's all.
Great.
I would add Corte Madera and Larkspur employees as well. Employees of the towns, their children.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Do you have something, Alden? Go ahead, Sarah.
This is something that came up at my work earlier because we're considered essential. Daycare facilities that are staying open to take care of children of essential workers, those are actually kids that are pretty highly exposed because of what their parents do in the community. So it might be worth considering grouping those kids together in a class and keeping, kids of non-essential workers together in a different class, just to limit exposure even more.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Any
I'm
other
sorry,
comments?
just one more question.
Please.
In the classrooms, they're going to be divided by age as well, or are you looking for a cross section? How's that planning going?
That's still a work in progress, but in the past we have gotten requested to have them be organized by age, and that's something that we wanted to explore, but due to the large program that we had in the past, it wasn't something very doable, but it is something that I would like to see happen this year. It's just nothing's confirmed. We're still planning around that.
Other comments? All right, thank you, Shana. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yep. We'll move on to our next item in the agenda, which is the consent calendar. And the only item under consent is the approval of the draft minutes from the February 24th commission meeting. Is there any discussion on those? And if there is no discussion, we can get a motion to approve those.
I make a motion to approve them. Yeah, make a motion to approve the February 24th minutes.
And is there a second?
I second.
Okay.
Okay, and if we could do a roll
We'll
call.
probably continue doing roll call votes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Elson,
Yes.
Commissioner Miles,
Yes.
Commissioner Phipps,
Yes.
Commissioner Ravazio,
Yes.
Commissioner Weingart is absent, Vice Chair Janowski,
Yes.
Chair Blomgren.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to number 7, business items. The first one is the impact of COVID-19 on the town from our town manager, Todd Cusimano. And we asked to put this in the business section because I believe Todd is going to specifically talk about the effects on the town budget and the Parks and Rec budget. So please take it away, Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Rebecca, if possible, are you able to put up the staff report from the last council meeting?
Yes.
Specific, the 2 charts, I think on page 6 and 7. So, you know, this is really an unprecedented time on so many different levels, as we all know. You know, I wish I had a better topic to discuss for you all, you know, but I don't. You know, in good times and bad times, you know, every 7 years we have a fiscal downturn. If you go back 40 to 50 years in the history of government. And historically what happens, you know, in the 2000s, you knew what the number was. You knew what the deficit was over a 2 to 3 to 4 year window. That was the CalPERS cost. And you could see what it was and you knew the percentage that you had to cut and you could develop a game plan. What 90% of the cities and towns do in those situations is they freeze and they eliminate services. You know, towns and cities are responsible for a few things. It's in the government code, and you're responsible for, you know, public safety, police and fire. You're responsible for, you know, public works maintenance and governance. Everything else is in peril. In the late 2000s, it was a different type of scenario for us. And it was the worst that our town ever experienced. For us, we're sales tax based. You know, over a third of our revenue is based on sales tax. And so when we took the hit that we did in the market back in the late 2000s, over a 5-year span, we developed a $2.5 million deficit and we had $0 in our reserves, 0. We were actually borrowing to make payroll from the sanitary district, which we own as part of the town. And we were paying $200,000 a year on a trans tax for that borrowing. At the time, our council member Ravazio was on that council. And back in 2016, when I was hired, that's our discussions that we had. And for me, for him, even to consider me as a town manager, you know, Councilmember Ravazio was like, look, we need to build resiliencies into our budget. We need to last in the good times and the bad. And we can't play this game of freezing and eliminating positions. As I have this conversation with you, it's specific to Parks and Rec. You know, our quality of life, our identity of who we are as a town, from volunteerism to our identity, it's through Parks and Rec. And it has to be sustainable. And so really at the start of my message, at the end of my message, I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert. I'm not asking you to make cuts. I'm not going to be freezing positions. We're going to go attack this thing. And one of the things that was really important to me when I looked at, and I appreciate the commissioners being part of it, Emily was one of them, and so was Fred, I wanted to bring someone in here that's absolutely dynamic, that can build this thing from the ground up, that's a problem solver, that's just going to go attack this thing and be proactive. And really why that's important to me, why that was important to the commissioners that were on the interview panel, it's because we want to match the identity of our commissioners. We have a unique commission, and I think we have an opportunity through this unprecedented time to really go attack it. With that, I want to share some things with you because it's not all rosy, but I want to share with you we have a plan, and we're going to get through this. And so just really quickly, if you'll allow me, if you look at the current fiscal year in 1920, you can see where the hits are. In the sales tax, the sales transaction use tax, we're going to take a $1.9 million hit this year. And that's because from mid-March to right now, we've had our 25 major sales tax earners closed. A majority of them were closed for those 2.5 months. And so we know what those dollars are. We can follow them. It's about 1.9 million. Of that, about 1.2 is our 1% sales tax. That $1.2 million deficit strictly hits our operating budget. It's personnel, it's operations. The other 700,000 and change, about 726,000, that is our sales tax measure hit from Measure C. And so I believe it's Measure C. God, there's so many measures now. But it's our sales tax measure, and that's capital improvement projects. And so that's what we're looking at. You can also see our transient occupancy tax. You can see that in column in the fiscal year 1920, you can see the hits, 2.7 million. So how are we going to answer that? And so really our plan through the finance director, Daria Carrillo, we've developed a surplus of funds over the last few years. And so when I compare the late 2000s of having to borrow money, we currently have $30 million in cash in the bank. And so we actually, instead of paying to borrow money at $200,000 annually, we actually make hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest annually. And so we're well positioned to deal with this. About 30 million of that, 12 million is the sanitary district, and the rest is our operating budgets. Over the last few years, we've developed a surplus where we have about 2.5 million in an emergency reserve in situations just like this. We always thought in an emergency, we thought about the standard ones, a major flood, an earthquake, a fire. The thought with the $2.5 million emergency reserve was how long within reason can we set aside funds so we can continue with the operation, staff, payroll, to keep providing service in a disaster, to where we could then get assistance from the federal and state governments. And so 2.5 million, it basically gets us through 3 months in the worst case scenario if you didn't have any funds. So if you put that aside for a second, we also have a 10% reserve. So our budget's about $18 million in the operating budget. Our absolute reserve by council resolution is 10%. Well, we have close to almost 20% right now in a reserve from our surpluses. We also, last year, had a $3 million surplus at the close of the year. So $1 million of that went into the pension and OPEB trust, our retiree health trust funds. And then we left $2 million actually in the general fund. And we left it there because we know our sales tax revenue can spike in the good years, above, because we take a really conservative projection. Our projections on any given year is about $6.7 million. This last year was 3 million above that. We kept it flat into this fiscal year, just left it at 6.7 because it fluctuates. The good news is, and at Daria's recommendation and the council's really leadership of living the past, that's going to help us right now through fiscal year 1920. So out of the $2.7 million, we'll probably have to use about $900,000 of that surplus, of the 2 million surplus that is sitting in our operating budget right now. And we believe we can balance the rest through being creative, through sharing of services, just being smart with how we spend our money. For fiscal year 2021, it's a different animal. we're projecting 30% hits to our sales tax. To put that in perspective, the county estimates about an 18 to 22% hit to their sales tax. We're a little bit different because we're point of sale with the shopping centers. We had HDL, they're a third-party financial analyst that we use to analyze our sales tax revenue. They project that hit to be about 21% for us. What we did is we took that 21, 22% worst case scenario between HDL's analysis and the counties, and we basically said, hey, what do we think is going to happen? You know, and so what with our major sales tax earners, you know, we know there's not there's no answer right now to the pandemic, and so we know that could last through 2022. Do we think that this could come back? You know, when do we think we're going to open? We think we're going to start to open now. And this is actually about 2 weeks sooner than we anticipated. So that's good news. But we anticipated, you know, we'd start to open up through the summer, get back to some sort of normalcy, still lose about 20% in revenues. But we think in the fall, there's the potential that we could be right back here again. And so our estimates are that we could actually have a shutdown again. And so that's what we're projecting for 2021. We're going to be really conservative. So this is a big number, but I think it needs to be that, and we need to work around it. Within the $3.2 million, can you scroll down to the next page, please, Rebecca? Thank you. If you look at that, you go to this chart right here on fiscal year 2021 at the top. Again, $2 million of that 3.7 is the 1% sales tax that goes to our operation. Again, that's personnel service delivery. 1.2 million of that is the sales tax measure that are capital improvement projects that we talk about, right? For Skunk Hollow, bathrooms, facilities, and such. Okay, so if you go to the top on fiscal year 2021, we believe the actual number, when you look at sharing of services with police and fire, we're actually doing more now with that, with public works and potentially parks and rec. We believe that we can actually balance our budget. We believe the deficit to close for the operating budget is 1.9 million. We'll actually bring to council in about 3 to 4 weeks a balanced budget, not a deficit budget, not one where we use any reserves, that we can balance our budget with a $1.9 million hit. What we can't balance is the hit to the sales tax measure. And so if we lose, so go down to the second row here, when you look at, I'm sorry, I said it was measure C, it's actually measure F. Our 3/4 cent sales tax measure, when we first went from a 1/2 cent sales tax to a 3/4 cent sales tax measure, we estimated that revenue source to be about 3.5 million. In 1819 and 1920, we really just saw our economy just flourished. And so the projections jumped to $4 million annually. You can see there where we keep it even now, where we keep it flat. So if you go out to fiscal year 23-24, you can see where our projections were 4 million. It actually went up to about 4.1 million in fiscal year 23-24. If you go to the next line, the estimated recovery, you can see what our estimates, what we think is going to happen. We think that we really won't return to the numbers that we experienced this current fiscal year until probably 23-24, and we need to project that. But the good news is, if you look at what these estimated numbers are, they're what we anticipated when we passed this tax. You know, when we passed this tax, we looked at this tax measure for capital improvement infrastructure projects. It was going to support us from disaster preparedness, from fire preparedness, and all the things you hear about with the CHIPPR program and all the work we're doing there. It was going to help us from, you know, our NRG programs. It was going to help us from all the great work that Jared and his team is doing, from the streets and sidewalks and flood control and all that good work. And it was also going to maintain, you know, our parks and improve all of our facilities for our parks. So when you look at annually of that revenue stream, we anticipated 4 million annually from the sales tax measure, $1 million from restricted funds like Measure A, the parks measure, all of our state and federal grants that we get annually that we can actually depend on and we know are coming in the near future. We actually had $5 million annually that we knew that we could just divvy out between our commissions to say, okay, here's what we want to attack this year in our streets and roads. Here's what we want to do for Parks and Rec. And we could really come up in disaster preparedness, and we could really develop a nice, thoughtful plan. So here we are now. We have $10 million in our fund for capital improvement projects. We have $12 million in the sanitary district fund. This next fiscal year, for fiscal year 2021, we think our revenue, again, is going to take a substantial hit. We think we're going to lose 1.2 million. But the good news is we're still going to bring in a revenue stream of about 2.8. We're still going to bring in about $1 million in restricted funds from the state and feds as well. So we can still, with what we have in the bank, what we're projecting over the next couple of years, we're going to go attack it. And we think that through construction costs, we have an opportunity to get better cost. As you know, there's been a lot of 30% overruns in some of the projects because, you know, it was in the contractor's best interest. You know, it benefited them. And I think we're going to have some opportunity now with the thoughtfulness of the council and the commission of really saving some money to really go and move forward. And so that's kind of big picture of where we're at. What I've asked Ashley to do, I'm not, you know, to Pat, to your question, and it's a really good one. And we've had this conversation with the commission and staff before. I'm not looking just because we're in unparalleled times to sit there and go, let's go make money at the expense of our citizenry. You know, we have to subsidize some of these programs. We have to be thoughtful in who we help. We're not looking at making money. We just don't want to lose this isn't the time to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars annually. I think the commission and staff did a good job over the last year to really close the gap and subsidize what is important to us, but also break even, you know, when at all possible. And so really that's the direction that, you know, I've given Ashley to work with this commission on. You know, and Jared's going to talk about capital improvement projects next, but we want to close the Skunk Hollow project. We're looking at, you know, improving and maybe adding to our facilities as it relates to bathrooms within, you know, Town Park. And we also want to do some improvements to the community center. And so I think, you know, and for the commission, those commissioners that have been on the commission for a while, and you've seen us have this conversation up and down and go, here we go again. What do you mean we have to do more analysis or we have to reinvent what our wish list is? I just think that as we close in the dog park, and the dog park is the other project, as we close the bathroom conversation, Skunk Hollow, improvements to the community center and the dog park, to really have a thoughtful process between staff and Ashley and the commission on what we want to accomplish the next few years and start to develop that big picture view that I think our engineering team has really done with the streets and sidewalks and that programming. And I know this commission's been dying to do it on your end. I think this is the time, you know, to really develop that and then be thoughtful in how we take, you know, 4 to 5 million annually in revenue and how we spread it out between the sanitary district to our streets and roads and our parks, and really be thoughtful in how we do that over the next few years. But I am not asking you to make cuts. I'm just asking you all to do what you do and be proactive, have a voice, and problem solve the issue and go attack it. And so I think we have the right people. I'm going to get out of your way. I don't have a set budget of, hey, you have $1 million to spend this next year in capital improvements. I'm not giving you, the universe is open right now. It's what do you see as the priorities, you know, with staff, and then come back and let's think about it, you know, and how do we do that over the next couple of years? And so with that, I'll stop talking. I'm happy to answer any questions. I will tell you, this is unprecedented from the standpoint of what I know today changes tomorrow. It is just, it's at an absolute pace in my 23 years in government that I've never seen before of how quickly things change. But what I'll tell you that I don't see changing is kind of some of this immediate view of where I think we are between now and 23, 24. I think these numbers are going to ebb and flow a little bit, but this is probably what we're going to be looking at. And so we have to be prepared for it. And anything better is better, good for us. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much, Todd. Rebecca, as before, would you mind checking to see if there's any public comment first?
Okay, checking emails first to give people a moment to get their hands raised. And there are no emails received And in checking for raised hands, I'm currently not seeing any hands raised.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again, Todd. We're lucky to have you in any times. Definitely lucky to have you in these difficult times, so appreciate it. Any comments or questions from commissioners?
I would like to just say 2 words. Thank you, Todd. I have been hearing, you mentioned Bob, and I've been hearing from Bob how the arrival of Todd in our town is the reason why we are going to be okay through all of this. So your work is really appreciated. I mean, and I hear the gripes when it's not going well. So I know that you are really stepping up, and I feel like you're like this juggler with like 100 balls and somehow you're keeping them all in the air. It looks like magic from here. And I just want to say thank you.
Thanks, Pat. And I just, again, I know it's not a love fest or anything, but I love working here. And I just want to tell you that it took me 3 years to really develop the staff that I have. Ashley was the last hire to bring in the team. And I just got to tell you that it's called Marin Recovers, and how we get back to where we are today. Each of our department heads, and Ashley's one of them, are in the leadership team in their own areas of expertise. And so when you talk about how are we going to be safe, how are we going to develop a plan, how are we going to get restarted, well, our director, Ashley, and everyone else on the director team are part of that, in their own respective fields. And so, you always take the blame as a manager, and unfortunately you get the credit too, and I don't. My credits, I brought in a great team, and so I'm really excited to have Ashley, help us through this as well. So thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Okay, thanks a lot, Todd. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And then
just a reminder, if Todd doesn't stick around for the whole meeting, please don't press end meeting for all when you exit.
Thank you. Our next item is under business item 7B. It's an update from Jared from Department of Public Works on a number of items. So Jared, if you're ready, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay. So let me take ownership of the screen here. All right, here we go. My name is Jared Barrio with the Department of Public Works, Senior Civil Engineer, and I'm going to be giving a brief update on a few projects that RJ last discussed at the February 24th, I believe, Park and Recs Commission meeting. So as Todd alluded, the Skunk Hollow Park is getting pretty close. We talked about it at you guys all heard from RJ regarding this project at the last meeting. And what was presented were a few options, more, kind of conceptual feelings, and there was good dialogue that we took back and made a few tweaks to the concepts, and engaged with Miracle Play System, who is a manufacturer of play equipment. And what you can see down here is an aerial view or plan view of the selected play structure layout that we're going with based on feedback. And what we did is really took some of the input on color schemes and color palettes to try to subdue that and make a little bit more earth tone colors. And so you can't tell that from here, but we'll get to that in a second. Those have been incorporated. Some natural rock kind of feel with some little sloped climbing areas and little rock outcropping. Access to the decks has been included. There was a request to include monkey bars. So that was something that we kind of looked close at, and were able to get a small horizontal ladder system in there, and that's highlighted there. Just the size of the play area didn't dictate being able to get a real large, expansive monkey bar system in, but we were able to get something in there. But as you can see, this is a layout here, and it has a few different features. A couple slides, and then the adjacent swing set over here with the top seat, and then the two older child swings, the belts. So now here's a rendering. So what we did after engaging Miracle Play is we went on to forming a web page. We put a mailer, a notice out to the neighborhood, created a web page, and kind of highlighted the project, a few of the benefits, and it was an opportunity to really engage that dialogue with the neighborhood. So this was the rendering that kind of was put together to just kind of real high level capture. It's not professional Photoshop. It's pretty bare bones, but I think it does communicate a little bit of what's going in. A front fence along the street front. The swing set is right. It's actually a little bit more south than this picture shows. A couple new benches behind the play area, preservation of the tables, and then some flat work, some new ramps, ADA accessibility to the site, drinking fountain. And it's all about new rubberized play surface as well. So it meets modern park standards. So this was, the upper image was something that we presented on the webpage and sent out, and then collected feedback. And of that feedback, one of the major items that was recurring among comments was the accessible stall, the handicap stall in the front. Like, is that absolutely necessary? And so we looked into it and reviewed it with our ADA coordinator. And it is a necessary add. This is being it is a town project on town property. Having an accessible parking stall is going to be a requirement. So what we did also look into were color options for those what are typically yellow truncated domes. We found a little bit more earthy terracotta, kind of reddish color option there. So I think that's going to downplay a little bit of the vibrant coloring that comes along with the curb ramp. And then some questions that came in were the significance of the picnic tables and keeping those and making sure those aren't out of the project. So do want to report, and I wasn't clear enough, but yes, the picnic tables are going to remain, and they're actually going to be resurfaced and refurbished a little bit. So they're going to look nice. And then one of the tables is actually handicap accessible right now. So we're going to be doing a little concrete path over to that. So quick little time frame for this project. It's mostly complete. We're actually going to be at the town council meeting tomorrow night, requesting the council to authorize the bid process to start bidding. So that would, if approved, that would go through May into June for the bidding procedures, in which that then would turn, assuming we get a reasonable bid, the award of the construction contract would yield a construction start around July. And then we're looking at about a 40 work day or 2-month construction time. So late August would be my guess, maybe early September. So are there any questions for Skunk Hollow? I'll just stop at each project and maybe collect a few questions, and then we can continue the PowerPoint.
It's not a question, Jared, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for incorporating all of our feedback. You guys have done such a nice job of organizing this, and I know the neighbors really appreciate, and as a commission, we really appreciate you taking our feedback and incorporating it so well.
Yeah,
I will second that. And just a couple quick questions on the water fountain. Is there also a bottle filler and or a doggy option down below? And then my second question is, I'm sort of assuming this, but I want to make sure that I don't assume things, that the fencing, the black, if it's the black wrought iron, that we're really working to achieve a uniform landscape look for all of our projects in town, that we don't adjust things for one neighborhood so that it ends up not looking as much like Corte Madera. So I just wanted to check and make sure you had this sort of template or style guide or whatever for your projects like this.
Yeah, I'll respond to that. So I'm going to be grabbing a page out of the spec pretty much from the dog park for the three things, actually. The benches, we're going to go with a more consistent uniform bench manufacturer and style and size, color, all that, as well as this fence you see here. It's going to be the same chain link fence manufacturer, and it should be a black vinyl coated chain link fence, about 4 feet tall. Pretty much a grab from the dog park as well. The water fountain, we were just going to go with a little bit more basic for cost purposes.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I can take a look and see if there's any wiggle room in the budget to incorporate the bottle filler. I know those are pretty convenient.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions.
Just procedurally, Rebecca, why don't we go ahead and take public comment at the end of the Public Works presentation, so at the end of Jared's, but we'll just do what we're doing now and go ahead and allow commissioners the chance to speak on each project. Thank you. I agree with Commissioner Janowski. You guys did a great job incorporating all the comments. There was a lot of community interest, and you guys did a great job. Is the fence going to be fully enclosing the park to keep little ones from escaping?
So I don't know, on the northern side, it will go pretty close up to that corner fence over there. Okay. And if it's the difference of returning it 2 feet back for a tight seal, we could do that. It's not a problem. The challenge is, as we get to the southern end of it, we have some low kind of spotty bushes and shrubs, and those are, I mean, a child can easily pass through that landscaping area. And we weren't planning on sending that fence all the way down the street. We were just going to kind of keep it at the play area. So no, it's not going to be fully enclosing, but it will predominantly enclose the play area, and it will discourage children from running out into the street.
Okay, I know that was a comment during some of our public events. I think if you tie it into the landscaping and maybe we pay attention to making sure the landscaping is as dense as it can be, that would be helpful. And is the grass at the south end going to stay as it is?
Yes. So the grass, what we're going to have to do is do a little bit of conform grading as we go at the southern edge of the play area. It's kind of outside of the picture here, but the old play area was about 20 feet shorter, and we really had to kind of blow that out to get this swing set in. There's a slight soft grade to the site there. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to damage and replant a little bit of the grass as we wrap the bottom edge of that play area together. So it'll mostly be remaining. To answer
okay, great, thank you. Any more questions?
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
I realize that a lot of work has gone into this, and I've been at some of the prior meetings where this has been discussed. So I know that this is coming in late, but I think that we can't ignore the moment that we're in right now and the possibility or the likelihood that conditions for public spaces like this may fundamentally change as a result of this pandemic. And I'm wondering if there has been any thought given, or if there's been any expert opinion that has been published around how to make this type of structure and space safer and more sanitary for kids. So a couple questions would be, is there an opportunity to put a sanitation station in, like the temporary ones that are currently in the town that are enabling hand washing in places that don't have plumbing? Have we looked at the possibility of a self-cleaning bathroom that would be able to not only help people who need to use the facilities while they're in this space, but also to sanitize, have hand washing? I think that's really important, because I'm just afraid that this expense and this beautiful new structure will be put in, and people will still be considering how to social distance and keep their children safe for many months, many years possibly to come. So I just think we need to think about it now before we break ground. And then I just had one other question, or two other questions, about whether or not there had been any consideration given to providing some shade beyond what the trees provide, and if there are going to be bike racks that are available for people who bike to the park.
Those are all excellent points. So I'll just respond immediately to the wash station idea. I think there's absolute possibility that a wash station can be put in, and I think that's a maintenance, public works maintenance task. I think we could proceed with the project as it currently sits, and then any sort of mobile wash station could be incorporated, or we could have a little bit more semi-permanent, maybe sanitary wipe dispenser or something like that at the entry gate. I think that's a great idea. The restrooms, that one is a little bit more cost than the project budget originally was set up to include. But if a restroom facility becomes a little bit more popular and in need at this location, which is entirely possible, this proposed construction and layout doesn't preclude the ability for that restroom facility to go in. We do have plenty of space in the southern portion of this site that a facility like that could be built and tied into the sanitary facility, the sanitary district infrastructure, without having to damage or disturb any of this new construction that goes in. So I think just from a standpoint of budget, the restroom facility may not make it at this point, but I don't necessarily think that down the road, when some funding can be earmarked for this, that could be definitely something here if needed. And then the shade topic had come up, and short of installing one of those large shade sails, which are kind of pricey, and they're large foundations for those. You might have seen the one that just recently went in over the town park, those are great, effective shade producers. But we did have a conversation with the Miracle Play System and requested that they put canopies on all the platforms wherever they could to provide a little bit of shade for those young kids playing out in the sun. And then further reinforcing that, there's a lot of dense shade just to the east on the other side of this park. It's not shown in any of these renderings, but if you're familiar with the site, it's pretty heavily shaded just past this play area. And then lastly, the bike racks, that's an easy add. And one thing that I didn't mention is something that the engineering and public works maintenance teams have been collaborating together on for this project is ways to effectively kind of draw down the overall cost demand for the project that would be responsible for a contractor to build. And some of those, quick things are such as the demo of the existing sandbox and the demo of the existing wood play structure. We have a very capable public works maintenance team that can get in there and do that demolition before a contractor even starts, and then we're doing our due diligence with preserving costs. So to that end, installing a bike rack, we have bike racks over at our maintenance yard, and we can throw one in, and I'll make sure that happens.
Thank you.
Any other Scott Paulo questions? All right, you can move to the next project, Jared.
Okay. So here's the green room remodel project that RJ spoke to you all about last time. So real quick recap, that's the green room is the space behind the community needs center, just adjacent to Eastman Drive there. And the main takeaway here is that there's a large reduction in scope. So that was something that was closely coordinated with Ashley when she got here, and she kind of took a good hard look at how that project was going to work or not work, and how it could be improved and revised to better suit the park and recreation staff and other users of that space. So instead of talking about things that are going to be removed from that project, I think it's a better to highlight the main project updates to be included in that. So there's currently a really small restroom back there. We're going to be doing revisions to making that ADA accessible. Originally it was to be removed. And also installing a kitchenette back there to function as a little quick break room for that space. Some storage, and then extra workstations also back there. And then part of the green room remodel, it's still called the green room remodel, but it's going to incorporate a little bit more beyond that specific little area. So we had a CASP report performed, which is basically a thorough assessment of the community center from a certified individual to come and check all of the accessibility shortfalls or barriers that exist there, and to write up a really long, thorough report of what exists and how we can fix it and how to phase it and stage it. And so part of the project now we're looking at is folding in some of these upgrades that we know exist, and we'd like to remove those barriers and make the building itself entirely more accessible. And then another part of this project would be the Park and Rec staff relocation to the previous intergenerational center space. Something that was originally in the scope and still is that old wood frame stair just off of Eastman that does directly go into the green room. It's lacking in many facets, including its structural capability. So we're going to keep that included in the scope of work to do. It's right here in the picture, but it doesn't have code compliance with a lot of its features. So something about that is we're going to be phasing that CASP report and picking off some of the smaller items, some of the quicker, easier to do things before we even get into this project formally. So that will just be on a separate little task order with a contractor. Some of it's just signage and real quick, easy tasks. And then we'll roll in a little bit more involved work into the quote unquote green room remodel project. So currently we're working on revising the drawings and the unfortunate reality is we were pretty much permit ready with the old scope. So we're kind of going to have to backpedal a little bit to tweak things, which is not a big deal at all. It's great because it's going to be more customized. But the time frame is the only thing that notably suffers from that. So we're looking at, the next step would be to shepherd a finalized bid package to get that scope of work into a contractor's hands. So that would be in the coming year for construction. That would not be a project that's coming up this summer. Any questions with that? I know I kind of touched on a few things real quickly, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Nope, looks like we're good there. And I think you had Town Park restroom update.
Yep. Okay. So just to highlight, everybody knows where it is, but I'll point it out. It's next to the tennis courts, just off the parking lot. It's the concrete surrounded restroom that you see in the bottom picture there. So this, we're looking at doing another kind of multi-phased improvement here. What you can see down there is a live picture taken this afternoon. But our guys are in there now, and they're doing some superficial interior upgrades so to help address the concerns that were in there, such as dim lighting, kind of not very welcoming presence, and We're looking at doing new paint all throughout the inside and ceiling, walls, and then doing a nice epoxy coating on the floor. So these are not the most flattering images that you see in front of you, but I just want to give an update of our guys are actively in there, and they're stripping off what you see in red is they're stripping off the old paint so that the new stuff will stick. But just a quick run down through what we're looking at doing. The green items above are real quick and dirty, and our guys are in there doing it, and they should be out in probably a week and a half. And then the box below are a little bit more involved and take a little bit more skill and certification. So we're having a contractor, we have had a contractor give us a quote, and it's going to be submitted to council for approval so that we can have a replacement of the toilets and sinks, replacement of the men's partition, lighting upgrades within the interior, adding hand dryers, which there's none currently there. So that will be a helpful add for our maintenance team. And then adding diaper changing tables on the inside. So yeah, once we get council approval, then we can start to proceed and get that contractor cranking on the box items there. And that should do it for the near term improvements to the town park restroom. Now there is definitely a need for a complete revamp facility, more than just interior surfaces. And we had that in mind from the get-go. So all of these, we kind of wanted to do a 3-year, plus or minus fix that'll just spruce the restroom up and make it a much more nice user experience in the interim until a new formal facility can be installed. So any quick questions for the bathroom remodel?
Jared, I've got kind of two general questions. The last time I was in there, which has been a while, none of the doors were working on the women's restroom, like the actual locks wouldn't close. Is that included in part of this?
Yeah, that was a very small item cost-wise. So it's actually going to be in the contractor's scope when they're doing the partitions. But absolutely, that was that's not good to have. So currently our maintenance team actually got out there and put some little slide bar locks as an interim fix, but still we're going to do something a little bit nicer than that.
Anything's great. And then the other question I would have would be about soap dispensers. The ones in there are non-functioning. If it's possible, given all the hand washing we're going to want to do, to get that included as well.
Okay, that's a great point. I will note that down.
And then I'd ask kind of Ashley, once we're live and able to use those again, kind of I assume we'd have a new cleaning and protocol plan for the restrooms once they're available to the public again.
I think our maintenance guys get in there and do cleaning. Are you thinking the frequency or?
Yeah, kind of the frequency and protocol once they're used by the public again, what that means kind of in a COVID world, how often.
COVID, yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. And as an interim, because I know the county health department has started opening up town or county parks and restroom facilities. So what we're looking at doing, obviously, we can't have ours open at this very second, but to increase the sanitation of the town park portable restrooms that are currently out there, if and when they do open. Yeah.
Awesome.
Other questions on this topic?
Just a question, given everything that's going on, is there any thought or any money in the budget for touchless sinks and toilets? Automatic flushing and automatic sinks?
Absolutely, that's been included. Yeah, we have them in there now, then they don't function properly, and we want to put them in there that function properly now.
And this is probably a question not so much about this restroom project, but just in general. Is there an opportunity to be installing hand sanitizer stations, just the touchless Purell dispensers throughout the park space for people just to be able to use on an ongoing basis to try to keep clean surfaces?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and we'll work with Ashley. I'll bring that up to RJ, and I think having that as a global conversation around town, not just in our parks, but many public places that I think that can find real benefit.
I can't tell you how excited I am to see this actually happening.
Great.
Okay, and I think you had one more, the dog park update.
Yeah. So if you've been out and around that area, you may have seen the construction happening out there at the moment. So this week and next, the guys are going to be doing some concrete work, putting in gravel, the base rock, and then concrete to follow next week, and then the week after that, the first week of June. The fencing, the chain link fence will be installed. You'll see the posts crop up first, and then they'll put in the line fencing after that. So we're looking at a mid-June, just under a month of more construction until that's up and running. With a big asterisk, I forgot to put an asterisk, but I'll say it. MMWD is the controller of our water, so we definitely have to get their buy off and sign off for all the water system that functions there. So that is something that we're working with and working on, and hopefully we can have that checked before the construction completes, so that it'll be a fully functional water operated dog park.
And will you open the park without the water if you need to?
I think that is, yeah, I think we would. Why not, right?
So I feel, yeah. Any more questions on dog park?
I do, just one. On the map, if you can go back to that, I'm just wondering the south border of the fence, this area is smaller than would be ideal for the dog park. So I just want to make sure that that back fence is really right up against the vegetation, that we're not losing any space there, that we're really tucking in as close as we can to the vegetation. And then my other question is just what Louise and Alden brought up. Can we add the sort of modern COVID sanitation access to the dog washing area? Is it too late for that, or are we still able to do something there?
I'll look into it. It's my colleague's project, so I don't know right offhand if it is too late or not, but I will definitely look into that. In the very least, having a portable hand sanitizing dispenser.
Great. And then the fence? You don't. Yeah, you're not as versed in the details. That's okay. I could ask Chair.
Okay.
RJ.
Yeah. I can put him in contact with you.
No, I know how to reach him.
Okay.
That's okay. Thank you.
I'm wondering, is there, I can't tell from looking at this, but is there seating and is there shade included under these trees to sit?
So I believe there is shade on the southern portion. The fence does go under the trees. The bench that's going in needs a concrete pad. And I do believe that the bench near the entrance is on the concrete, and that will not have shade. I think, I'm not 100%, I think there's a bench elsewhere on site, and I don't know where it is. So I can request that the secondary bench, if it has not been formally located, find some shade.
Okay, great.
Yeah, sorry, the upper area is really a nice spot for a bench because it allows for viewing of the whole park and everything that's happening below. And there is really great natural shade all along that south end. So I don't think there's another bench already there though.
Okay.
I might have missed it. I don't think so.
Any other questions? Okay, I think that does it for
Oh, we got a surprise additional item, but this one's not long.
Okay.
So Ashley has requested that we look into getting a little flex building back here. And this is, we're totally in the feasibility stage right now. I say flex building, it's kind of what you envision as a modular classroom in size. We would definitely look for something a little more appealing to the eye, but along the same lines as functionality, use, and scale, as well as another restroom for the park goers and for people utilizing this additional classroom space out here. So we're looking into this, studying options, and this is in the early phase. So keep your ears tuned for updates to this as we continue discussions with this project. Yeah, but nothing major to report. It's on the cooking phase.
Okay, any questions on that topic? All right, thank you, Jared. So that entire update from Jared on Department of Public Works items was all under business item 7B. So I'll ask Rebecca if you can see if there's any comments from the public on any of the Department of Public Works items that Jared just spoke about.
I see no raised hands at the moment, but Patty Stolier did submit a question through the Q&A format that attendees can also use. And she says, to spread the word and rally community morale, how about a contest to name the dog park? Patty, I haven't unmuted you if you are interested in talking about this further.
I don't think there's any more to say. I just thought, you know, everything's so depressing these days. If we could have something like we did the trivia contest on Mother's Day, it would be nice to, and also to spread the word that there is going to be a dog park. So I like the idea of getting the community brainstorming ideas for the name.
Thank you.
I think that's a great idea. I think we should be aware of enforcing any strict democracy, because high school kids will get together and come up with a whole bunch of votes for a really weird name. Okay, thank you, Jared. Appreciate it. And I guess this is a separate sub-item that's related, is item 7C under business items, which is discussion and possible action to approve the final signage at the dog park.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and start that discussion since Ashley wasn't working for the town at the time this was discussed. And this was originally discussed by the commission back at your special November meeting, I believe you had. And when you met in February, I believe several commissioners asked if the rules could be brought back to review one last time to make sure that they were heard correctly before the park is completed and signage is printed. So that is what you see before you in the packet. Actually, I will go, let me go to the rules in the packet and share that screen. That might be helpful. Okay. So the rules that I included in the packet were the rules that the commissioners discussed, and then Chair Blomgren, you summarized this for the minutes. But I did add one last item about the no smoking rules for the park. And also there was an item that was added by the Planning Commission for the community that surrounds the park, that dogs that bark persistently must be removed. So I added that in as well.
Okay, and are you sharing that screen? I don't see it right now.
Shoot. No, I am not. No, I am. The one item that is not on here that the commission did ask about at the last meeting was to verify enforcement of infractions. And I checked with Larkspur and San Anselmo and the Central Police Authority, and a reporting phone number is not listed on their signage. We can have a separate signage, but CMPA encouraged the town to make a town phone number or a town office the primary first point of contact for infractions, especially at the startup, because there will probably be a lot of calls and reports of possible misuses of the park at the first couple months that it's up and running.
Okay, any comments or questions about the dog park rules?
Does it look like I've captured the discussion correctly?
Yeah, it looks good to me,
Anything
Rebecca.
worded differently?
I
So
just have
Rebecca,
one question. On the hours, I love that you're putting the hours on a separate sign. So if we want to change the hours, we can without redoing the sign. I think that's really smart. But I think 5 p.m. for October to May is really early. And I'm wondering if it could at least go to 6, because a lot of people get off work at 5 and they want to take the dog out. And I just hate the idea that the dog park is already closed at 5. I mean, even in the wintertime, it stays light pretty much until 6. So I'm just wondering if we can give an extra hour there and maybe ask why we're, restricting, what was the reason behind that 5
This was
p.m.?
discussed and approved at the design review and conditional use permit hearing at the Planning Commission level. So we as a body cannot override that decision, but perhaps
Okay,
brought back for discussion at a later date. And it possibly could be brought back for discussion once the dog park is open.
It's not critical. It was just a concern when I saw, because it's still really light, and people are still wanting to get out in the evenings with their dogs, but it's fine. We can always change it later now that you managed to make the sign easy to change.
and so Rebecca, are you asking us, do we need to vote or approve these, or are you just showing this for information?
It's for information, and the commission asked that it be brought back for final review by your body before signage is actually printed. So now is your opportunity to weigh in on any wording or any bullet points you would like to add, or basically anything you would like to see added to the signage before printing takes place. Or if we heard you correctly and this is what you want to see on the signage, then we are okay to go.
Okay, I would suggest that in the absence of a vote, that what you're showing is what's planned to be printed on the sign for the dog park. And it's not something we need to vote on, but if anybody has any objection or additions, they should bring it up now.
We can take a roll call vote if you prefer.
You guys think that would be preferable to get stoned?
Why not?
Okay, just do it as a formality.
Okay. Commissioner Brown.
Approve.
Commissioner Elson.
Yes.
Commissioner Miles.
Approve.
Commissioner Phipps.
Yes.
Commissioner Ravazio.
Yes.
Commissioner Weingart is absent. Vice Chair Janowski.
Yes.
Chair Blomgren.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Oh, I forgot to ask if any attendees have any public comment. But I am not seeing any raised hands.
Okay. Okay, moving on to the final business item, 7D, discussion on the 2020 Volunteer of the Year. I guess the first question is who has been nominated?
Don't believe anything went out.
Yeah.
Typically that's advertised, it looks historically either in March or April, or it says spring according to our last staff reports, but I do not believe anything was advertised.
I can jump in on that one. I didn't advertise for this because with everything going on and the parade, the 4th of July parade being canceled, the town wasn't I guess, prepared to run and share and promote a volunteer of the year, and it didn't make sense at the time. But we're coming back to you now with some other ideas for ways to honor people in the community that for everything that they've been doing during the course of this pandemic and the shelter-in-place order. So the Parks and Recreation Director had several ideas she wanted to discuss with you about how to proceed in light of the fact that we aren't having a community parade and don't have the ability to honor our awardees if we do have awardees with a spot in the parade.
So I'm recommending that the commission consider modifying the traditional parameters of the award for the 2020 term to recognize efforts of the community rather than an individual, delaying the nomination process from a traditional May deadline to a later month and determining an alternative format to showcase the awardees.
I think that makes a lot of sense, Ashley. I think, that's just for the unprecedented nature of this year and the fact that even in past years, we've had a difficult time getting nominees at all and recognizing them. I like your idea of pushing it back and doing something a little different this year.
I agree with that.
Anybody has any ideas they wanted to discuss for ways to honor members of the community? But one of the starting points for a discussion was something along the lines of people could write in and nominate a friend or a neighbor or a business or someone in the community that went above and beyond to help them during the shutdown. Somebody who wanted to thank someone for doing grocery shopping for them, or for being a good friend, or for being a good neighbor, or basically whatever you could want to identify to thank someone and make them feel special and appreciated at a time when you can't give high fives and hugs. And then we could honor them on our Parks and Rec website, or gift them with a gift certificate to a local business. There are a lot of things we can do, and a lot of reasons why people would want to call out and draw attention to someone who did something nice to them. So I think you could have fun with it, but we're here to discuss other ideas as well as what you see this direction it's taking.
I think that's a fantastic idea. There's so many people that have done small things that add up to big impact for their friends, family, and neighbors. It would be a really nice way to say that we all came through this as a community together because all those little actions added up to something great. So I think that that's fantastic direction for this, and in the spirit of the time that we're in right now. I have a question, and I realize that this emanates from having been a Senior Citizen of the Year award when it first started. But I think it's unfortunate, at least in my mind, that we have a 60+ age requirement for the Volunteer of the Year, whether or not that stays in place for this anomaly year or not. There's so many people who are doing wonderful things who haven't reached that 60 years, but who are older than maybe the youth volunteer age. And so I just think that we should open it up. There should be a youth and an adult, or a youth, adult, and a senior award, but you're precluding the inclusion of a whole lot of people who've done really fantastic things that are worthy of being recognized. So I would just suggest that we consider changing that for the future.
I have a question about this. So this is not the Citizen of the Year award. That's something else, right? This is the volunteer.
Yes, that is through the town council.
So I was reading it that sort of in the not me, but we idea that rather than just choosing one individual, even in a group, that we might have a dozen or 5 or, you know, that rather than just naming, I mean, there's so many that have done so much.
We were hoping for 45 people.
What's that?
We were hoping for 45, as many as people nominate. This wouldn't be.
So that's what you're saying, is that all you would do this long list of lots of people who deserve this award.
Correct.
Yeah,
I like that.
I imagine
I like that. I like that.
social media campaign related to it. Do a small movie where people are voicing things or holding up signs. There's so many ways that we could recognize the community and everyone's efforts.
Nice. I like that.
I envision it a little differently. I love the idea of recognizing individuals. And Ashley, you've done such a fantastic job since you've been here of using Facebook and social media. And I love like a campaign where it's literally small acts of kindness that neighbors are doing in recognition. But I know in past years, like I was picturing it really more like 2020 is the town of Corte Madera. I mean, just do not list 45 different people, but really a collective spirit of Corte Madera and kind of not name individuals on for our named, entity would be the town, the residents of Corte Madera, the people of Corte Madera, and then, but still do a recognition through Facebook where people, because I think it's random. I mean, are you going to get 45? And then what if, I don't know. I just like the idea of recognition publicly, but on this award, just making it a collective award.
I hate to
The
say
award
it, but
in name.
yeah, I think that makes it kind of meaningless and nobody will pay attention to it. I think people like to be recognized. They like to hear their names. I think maybe you could do 20 since it's 2020 and just set out that we're looking for nominations of 20. I love a phrase like the hero next door, and then maybe we will have to pass some judgment on, okay, this guy did this and this guy did, or maybe you just expand it to a greater number, but people really like to hear their name. And I think to do something without any names attached to it is shirking our responsibility a little bit, that we're not willing to, recognize individuals who contributed to the greater good.
One thing to consider, this is a 40th anniversary.
I'm sorry?
One thing also for the commission to consider is it's a 40th year anniversary of the award.
Nice, 2020, 40.
Well, let's
see if there's anything that plays into that.
To see what kind of response we get also. That's been a problem before.
Sounds like Ashley will take the reins on coming up with some ideas. I think both ends of that spectrum are good ideas, and recognizing the town of Corte Madera as a whole, and then perhaps also listing a number of small events or things that people have done. We could combine those, but I think we can leave it to Ashley for now to come back to us in the near future and let us know where she's headed.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Ashley, if you want any help, I'm happy to pitch in and come up with ideas or write copy or anything that you need.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any public comment on that, on 7D, Rebecca?
Okay, I'm checking for raised hands or questions. Oh, no comments on this, but I did miss Patty Stolier's comment on the dog park rules that offered some grammatical corrections. So second to last sentence needs a semicolon and smoking is probably not capitalized. Oh, and then she said not for public comment. But thank you and noted, and I will fix that. And I am not seeing any public comment for the 2020 Citizen Volunteer of the Year.
Okay, thank you. So that closes out item 7, business items. So item 8, we're getting there. Thank you for your patience and staying power here, everyone. 8 is staff update and commissioner reports. So Ashley, are you doing the staff update?
Yeah, I can do a quick one for us.
Okay.
Just kind of wanted to touch on some of our main things that our department is working on so that everyone has kind of an update of what staff have been working on to guide our community through this process. Weekly calls that are being made, so our community outreach. So that's began with all of our seniors that are participants in the Intergenerational Center, as well as our meal programs and our bingo. The list kind of fluctuates each week. It started with close to 400 the first week that we started during the pandemic. And as of last week, for week May 11th through the 14th, so that's a Monday through Thursday, because that's when staff were in the office, staff made 153 calls, added 1 person to the call list and removed 6. It was a real quiet week for incoming calls, only receiving 3, and 2 of which were hangups, and the other was a Corte Madera resident asking who to talk to about power being shut off. Staff created 3 requests for clients via Good Ferry Marin. One was additional call time for personal companionship, a second for tech support, and a third for assistance with shopping, just to give you an idea of the volume that we're getting and the request for service, which really is not that much. We're happy. That's a good sign that all of our community is taking care of each other. So really it's just the seniors and some of the people that are on our call list that are excited and look forward to having our staff call and connect with them each week. So they're actually building rapport with staff and starting to ask staff about their families and what they're doing. And it's really nice to overhear. It does take a little while though. Face covering collection, we're working with the neighbor to neighbor efforts through the county collaborations that I'm on. And so we are an unofficial drop point for neighborhood response groups volunteers that are sewing face coverings. And we've done it for about 2 weeks officially through neighborhood response groups. And we haven't received any so far. But once we do receive them, the plan is that Adriana Rankin from Marin Boad, which is the voluntary organizations active in disasters, collect them, launder them, and distribute those upon request. Virtual Recreation Center and Resource Point, which is our online page that we created as our virtual center. We update it every few days. The highlights were our egg hunt promotion, the week of May 4th, which also included May the 4th Be With You, Revenge of the 6th, and Cinco de Mayo. We had a lot of stuff going on that week via the website as well as our social media. And then next week, look forward to supporting Safe Routes to School Week. They've been doing a bike challenge for 1 week during the month of May. So we're hitting the last week and we're challenging our community. So that everything will be live next week for that, as well as in our social media. Leading into our social media, the purpose behind that is really to make our social presence out there. I feel like that was one of the weaknesses of our department in connection to our community. So we're building our community relationships, which will help us when we put out our survey to identify community needs associated with the services, programs, and classes and events that we want to provide our community once we are reopening. Let's see, the AFIC departure and transition. I'm sure you're all aware that Carla Condon informed the town a few weeks ago that the center would be relocating. I see this as a great opportunity for our organization, her organization, to find a new location that'll accommodate the need for space. They're outgrowing the facility here, and they're looking for a location that's really going to serve the vision of a center, which is what Carla's original intention was. And then we met with Patty, who's on the call, regarding our future collaborations with age-friendly Corte Madera, and our plan to build on the foundation that AFIC has started and to continue the great work that they've had in offering senior programming and intergenerational programming for our community. So we're excited to reopen in that fashion. And new this week is that tennis keys are available to purchase online. So our tennis players, now that the courts have been reopened, are eager to get back onto the courts. So all the purchases are online, and we have a whole process of people picking them up at designated times. And that's the staff report for you.
Thank you. And then following that staff update, I guess we'll ask if there's any questions for Ashley before we move on.
Ashley, I can connect with you separately, but I'm curious about what need has been expressed for the face coverings. I've been making masks, and I'm happy to help you out there.
Sure.
Okay.
Just one question, if I may, of Ashley.
Mm-hmm.
I applaud Patty and Carla for taking on the job of trying to find a new location for the intergenerational center, but knowing the cost of real estate in Marin, I'm wondering, is there anything that we're doing or can do to assist them in finding something? Because I mean, I know they didn't make a lot of money, so I'm wondering where they're going to be able to afford to find a center that they just can move into. Just a question.
Question.
Do you want me to jump in and take that?
Sure.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. So I think one of the things that all of us would recognize is that the Intergenerational Center was really undersized for what we were trying to do. And we all were aware of it. And so, I think that's one of the things that, Ashley's looking at right now, and Jared touched on it, is trying to develop some square footage, that's, visually pleasing to the eye. Like, I don't want to put in double wide trailers into our park, but something that's modular, that could potentially mirror like the facade of our community center and have enough square footage to really appropriately program moving forward. And so, the great work of Carla and Patty and all of our volunteers, that's a dream that we all want to see continue. We see that as something that's very viable moving forward. And so, the town hasn't taken, any programming off the table for our friends over at Age Friendly Solutions. And so we hope that we can continue our partnership, whether it be, on site or whether it be somewhere else. And so we'll continue that conversation with them moving forward. But, right now, as you know, we're in a new norm of, what does tomorrow bring us? And so we're kind of dealing with the moment, but we're also looking forward to having some room and space where we can program. And so that conversation will absolutely continue. And I see that continuing with the commissioners as well. So that's important to us.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our next item, which is commissioner reports and updates from the recent town council meetings. We'll do this a little unconventionally. We didn't meet as a group in April, and Commissioner Weingart was slated for following town council in April, and she's not here. Commissioner Miles was slated for May. I think because we have Todd here, I think we just got a very detailed download of town council meetings and the things that are part of Parks and Rec. But if there's anybody else who would like to speak to what they've been hearing at town and council and how it affects us, I invite them to do that now. And I'm guessing your report to us, Todd, was complete and there's no other items for Park and Rec that you can think of you guys have been discussing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think nothing that we have been discussing, but one thing that the council has given staff direction on is to come back to them and really just in the current state of where we are, just to take another fresh look at our CIP, our capital improvement projects, which absolutely affects our parks. And so that is one thing I think, probably in the next 3 months, we'll come back to the council with something. And so we do have about a 3-month window in the immediate future to have a discussion with the commission on any, projects that are near and dear to our heart that we want to see get done. I would see that as something, the commission may want to take up and consider with staff.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioner updates?
So Ashley and I exchanged an email or two since our last meeting regarding an idea that I'll float very quickly given the late hour and then let people think about. But I've been struck, I think as most of us have, by the opportunity for creating more community in where we are and getting to know our community in a different way. I've been spending a lot more time close to home these days, getting out and doing a lot of walks and discovering a lot of things about Corte Madera that I didn't know when I was commuting 5 days a week. So one of those has been kind of all the amazing steps that we have kind of hidden around town. And what a great way for people to get out and get exercise. And some of them are looking great and some of them could use a little TLC. So the idea was how do we take kind of people wanting to get out and get outside, wanting to spread out where people are, kind of how do we get people kind of not everybody on the bike path all together, kind of get them spread out a little bit through town a little bit more, and create a way for people to engage with the town. So the thought was a couple of these steps need some weeding and some pretty light kind of gardening and look around. Can we put together similar to what we would do with some summer playground? You drop off some supplies at a volunteers group, or a volunteer comes to the community center and grabs a couple things, and they go up, and we can do kind of household by household, socially distant repair and care around town, as a way to get people engaged and outside and improving the town all at the same time. That was my thought.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think within town council, they have their steps, lanes, and pathways group. And if this is something that we wanted to get behind, we potentially could. I would guess on the surface that it's probably outside the purview of Parks and Rec, and it might be more of a somewhere within town council to push something like that, but we could certainly raise that as an idea for sure.
And I wonder if this is, and Pat, you probably know where all these steps are, but if there is a map that exists anywhere to kind of help people find them and discover them, and the idea of kind of trails around town and ways to get out and explore that kind of get people off the bike path a little bit, and help get some exercise, that would be kind of a cool thing for us to publish.
I love that idea, a published map of all the trails and the pathways. I mean, so many people who come to Corte Madera for the first time have no idea there's this abandoned railroad right away that connects you to all the downtowns, all the schools, all your neighborhoods in the town practically. So yeah, I would love to see that happen. Somebody who might be willing to help us with this, Julie Kritzberger, I think is in the audience. Maybe the beautification committee would consider getting involved in this. And Julie, I'll come help if you don't think you have the volunteers, because I just think this is the kind of thing that we can do that doesn't cost a lot. It takes creative time, but it really makes us look like we're a community. I love the idea of publishing something like that, and it would last a long time, right? I mean, it would be a lasting document. Nice idea.
Great, thank you. Our next item under Commissioner reports is Executive Advisory Committee. I met with Commissioner Janowski and Parks and Rec Director Ashley Howe to introduce ourselves and get to know each other. We talked about what the Exec Committee does, which is essentially prepare for these meetings, make sure that all of the input from all of you has been received and everything's on the agenda that we want on the agenda. That's the main thing we go over. One thing I'll mention that we did go over is something that's near and dear to my heart that I've been pushing in meetings for many months or years now, and that's trying to work a schedule that all of us can see that has all of the projects that either Parks and Rec or Public Works through Parks and Rec is doing. And that schedule would include the dates on which we're going to discuss those topics on the agenda, the dates at which we'll vote for those things, the dates that we will recommend those for a town council meeting, whether or not town council needs to, perhaps have 2 readings or 2 open periods with the topic, and finally the date at which town council might vote on an item. And then beyond that, we would have construction start and stop dates. And that way we'd have a lot better idea of exactly when, for instance, the things Jared was talking about, when the bathroom construction would start and stop, when we have to vote on things. And we'd be better prepared for our meetings that we have every month, because we would know exactly what needs to be discussed, and we would know beforehand whether or not it's going to require a vote or not. So we haven't done that yet, but I told Ashley I would work with her and help get a schedule like that. And any input from any of you, you can send it directly to me or Ashley, but we hope to have something in the near future to lay out visually what Parks and Rec and Public Works are doing together. Anything from you, Emily, or are you good?
No, that's good. I really like that idea. I mean, we've talked about that for a while. Sorry, it's like I'm this weirdo that's sitting in the dark. I just realized my lights, the sun went down. I think that would be really helpful, and I like that idea. So yeah, thanks for spearheading that.
Okay, it was very light in your room when we started this meeting. By the way.
I know, I had the sun in my eyes, and all of a sudden it's dark.
Okay, the next item was the CNPR IGC programming And as we just discussed, that's on hiatus. And the final is individual commissioner updates. I think we kind of got into that already, but if there's any other individual commissioner updates, now's a great time for that. Okay, we're to the final item on the agenda, which is routine and other matters. The first is discussion of potential future agenda items. So as you know, if we want to have an open discussion about any topics, they do need to be on the agenda. So now's a good time if there's anything you want to discuss at the next meeting or future meetings.
I think it might make sense to, given Joel DeVilbus's email, and I know his wife Jolie had also written, if we think the dog park is going to open in June, it's probably worth keeping, an agenda item for our next meeting so we can just touch base and see what's the community reaction, how are our residents behaving, are they following rules, that kind of thing. It seems like that's going to be something that we need to follow up especially when the dog park opens, we're going to need to follow that pretty carefully.
Okay, so a discussion of the observance of existing park-wide dog rules.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I can think of that has sort of gotten lost in the craziness during COVID is the plan to do some planning, to get the community involved in envisioning what town park should be and what we need to do with it. And then also working in the Park Madera Center, because I know we're actually able to use some of the old spaces in there for classes and things. And I just think it would be a really great community process to bring people in and hear them out and talk about the parks. Maybe it's not just Town Park, but I do think if you put Town Park together with Park Madera Center, that's a big project, but it's a really important one that we make the community feel like they're involved and that they have a say and that we listen to them before we just keep, sort of doing our own individual projects. I don't know. I believe in planning and I believe in bringing the community together. Of course, in this COVID day, we may need to do it virtually. But I just want to keep that. I don't want that ball to drop completely. So maybe not next month, but maybe once things get a little bit better with COVID and we have more time to, I know the staff is so overstaffed, overstressed right now that I don't want to put it on their plate now. I just don't want to lose it on the agenda moving forward.
That's a fair plan. I think perhaps we can just make a point internally to, at the end of the next meeting, when we're discussing future agenda items, we can talk about whether we're ready to put a long-term park vision as an agenda item. But I think you're probably right. It would be a little difficult for us to get our heads around that at the next meeting. Any other agenda items?
I have a question. I think this may be wildly premature, but I think at the February meeting, there was some mention about updating and optimizing the website. And I didn't know if that was something that Ashley and her team were working on now and might be able to bring us in on some of the planning around that and what they're thinking, or is that a much longer range project?
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. That's not currently under discussion. I know it is one of the town goals of creating a more seamless and user-friendly website, as well as, I think it's a two-pronged discussion for our department specific, our website and the ease and organization of it, as well as the registration software. And it's something that we began discussing just before I started, but right now it's been something that's been put on hold to address the emerging needs.
Ashley, this is something I can help with.
Excellent.
Okay, great. And I will say, perhaps, Pat, we spoke a little too soon. In our calendar for the items for yearly review, for next month in June, we already have as an agenda item, Commission Capital Improvement Wish List, and that was moved from April. So we do have a wish list item for June, and I think we can leave that there, and if we want to bring anything up, we can. But it's a good time to spend the next month, and if there are some larger or longer term projects, we can bring them up as part of that wish list.
Mr. Chair, can I just add to the last question too? Regarding the communications plan. So the council in February had a retreat, and they basically set, our work plan based on priorities. And so there's 3 kind of sections to our priorities. And within priority 1 is also, fiscal management, recovering from COVID-19, our infrastructure, and then communications plan was added to that. And so we're actually completing some interviews right now. Our very own Jen Reedy is one of the, are basically someone that we're looking to really provide some services to us to evaluate, our communications plan as a town, websites and registrations. All of our departments are part of that. And so we're going to interview your town manager, your assistant town manager, and our mayor are going to talk to her on Wednesday. And if everything goes right, which I think it will, we've been doing interviews for about a year, and I just, I think the world of her, and I'm pretty impressed with her. So I'm excited to see what Rebecca and Eli think of her as well. And she's also a resident of our community. And so the council, after that interview, will take something to the council for basically a budget moving forward over the next 12 to 18 months, and really developing a robust communications plan of how we engage our community. And tied to that plan, one of the key parts to your question is our website, both in Parks and Rec and the town, registrations and how we do everything we do. And so that's an absolute priority. And really the council set that in February.
Can I just chime in, Todd, and just give a very, very strong plug for Jen. She's fantastic, professional, smart, diligent, just savvy. I think she would be fantastic partner for the town.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that wraps up our agenda. Just want to thank our 2 esteemed guests, our town manager, Todd, and public works engineer, Jared. Thanks for sticking with us through all this, and we appreciate your time. Thank you, as always, to Rebecca for organizing, and a big welcome to Ashley as our director and to Louise as our newest commissioner. So good to see both of you on the screen, not in person. But thank you all for all the work you're doing, and I think with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Nate.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.